What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. Now welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed. You guys, let me let y'all know right off the rip, like in the beginning, baby, they are rebuilding Houston right outside my window. Okay, right outside, so you may hear it, but mother gotta film. Okay, so here we are. Today's video, you guys, is a request from Charlotte over on Instagram. She requested the story of Milat or Ivan Milat. I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce this right because some people say Ivan, some of them have said Yvonne. I'm gonna say Ivan. That's where my tongue wants to go with it, so that's where we're gonna go. Anyway, my girl said I had to do Ivan Milat because he was a sick man, and indeed he was, okay? So shout out to you for the great suggestion. And a lot of you guys, I posted this story months ago asking for suggestions on cases. If you sent one, I'm still pulling from that. So don't feel like, girl, I just didn't accept your request. You very well may see it if it hasn't been done already over here. And the only other thing I want to address or say before I get started is I found this video where this girl did her foundation in like the face in a way or an order that I had never seen before. I'm sure it's probably not new to y'all because the person she said she got it from, she found it from them like years ago. So this is not something that you probably haven't seen already if you're into makeup. I just hadn't seen it, and I'm curious to see how it'll come together for mother. It came together for her quite fine in the video. So anywho, for a change, we're gonna do the face first. I haven't layered my foundation first in so long. This is gonna feel very different. All right, without further ado and more time wasted, let's get into the story of Ivan Milat. Or Yvonne Milat. I feel like I'm saying this all wrong, but you know, we're gonna pretend like I know I'm saying it right. Period. Ivan Milat is born December 27th of 1944 over in South Wales, Australia, making him a Capricorn. He is the son of a Croatian immigrant father, and his mother is a native to Australia who had married his father and her husband at the mere age of 16. Now, little Ivan is the fifth of their 14 children, which they eventually have a total of 10 boys and 4 girls. Here's a photo of some of them. And the little family lived very crowded inside of a little shack-like house on the outskirts of Sydney, Australia. Now, the boys are very troublesome, and they get into a lot of trouble throughout their youth. Like, they are known throughout the neighborhoods, throughout the schools, just everywhere they went, down to the church, as just the bad little Milat children. And as they get older and the trouble that they get into becomes a little more chaotic, they also develop a little reputation with the local police station. Or all of the children attend private Catholic schools, and honey, from the time that little bell rings in the afternoon, they get into all kinds of trouble, okay? That is how they spend their evenings, being bad. They would get into trouble and oftentimes be caught with little knives. And there's even one point in which they get their crummy little hands on a handgun and spend days after school doing target practice in their backyard. Now, little Ivan is a very antisocial child, but he is not a child without trouble, okay? He gets into just as much trouble, if not more, than his brothers. And by the age of 17, he is locked up in the juvenile detention center for theft. Now, according to Ivan's older brother, they were all kind of bad, but Ivan, he was like next level bad. And he began showcasing signs of psychopathic behavior very early on. Now, he was, according to his brother, very normal up until about 12 to 14. And trigger warning for anybody who is sensitive to details of animal cruelty, just go ahead and tap the screen, honey, and fast forward you about 30 seconds from now. At the age of 14, Ivan takes a machete out and cuts a dog in half, alive. At 17, he had told his brother about accidentally shooting a taxi driver during a stick-up that had gone wrong. The driver had survived this attack, and he was paralyzed from the waist down, but an innocent man is connected to this crime and ultimately convicted and serves 5 years for this incident that he had literally nothing to do with. At 19 years old, he breaks into a shop and catches himself yet another little charge. This one resulting in him spending 18 months in jail. Just 1 month after being released, he is arrested yet again, this time for driving a stolen car, and for this, he is sentenced to an additional 2 years in jail. Definitely is a little jailbird, okay? It seemed as if, little Ivan just would not. He was committed to the life of crime, but he wouldn't accept the fact that maybe it's not all that good at it. Like, maybe he should just hang it up. Nope, he is seemingly unfazed by all the times that he is caught in the act or immediately after the fact. Shortly after being released on his 2-year prison stint, he is arrested again and does another 3 years for theft. On Friday, April 9th of 1971, 26-year-old Ivan decides that he is going to take his criminal activity up a notch. He gets into his car and sets out to purposely find hitchhikers. He picks up and abducts 2 18-year-old girls. Now they're hitchhiking, so of course he convinces them to get into his car by promising them a ride to wherever they're headed. Once they are inside of the car, he drugs them with Valium, and then he drives around aimlessly, pretty much just waiting on the two of them to pass out, which they eventually do. The 2 young girls are horrified when they wake up sometime later. They are pulled over on a secluded dirt road, and Ivan here has a little pocket knife. He's telling them that he is going to have relations with the both of them. He then takes some nylon rope that he had, of course, brought out with him, figuring he would need it. He ties both of the young girls up. He assaults one just as he had told them that he would be doing. And then before he gets to the second girl, he decides, I'm thirsty. Let's just go to the gas station and get something to drink. Ivan wasn't that bright, okay? Because he leaves the 2 girls inside of the car feeling like, okay, they're tied up. They won't be able to escape. Dead wrong. While he is inside of the convenience store, the 2 of them manage to get outside of the car and flag down another car for help. Once he comes out and he sees that the girls are gone, he panics. He flees the gas station, but police don't take long to catch up with him. And when they do and they question him about this, he claims that everything that had transpired between him and the 2 young ladies was completely agreed upon and consensual. Of course, they do not believe him, so he is charged with the abduction and assault for one of the women. And while he awaits trial, he does not slow down. He goes back to his little life of crime, committing a string of robberies and burglaries with his brothers, because that's what they like to do. And as far as his upcoming court date, he has a plan for that. He stages his own demise, okay? Stages his self-deletion, then flees Australia and goes over to New Zealand for a year. I guess he figured after a year, things will have died down, especially if they think he's also died, and then he could just safely and secretly return to Australia, get back to business. And this little plan of his works for a while because he stays in New Zealand for a year, he returns home, and he is able to fly underneath the radar for 2 additional years. So this makes a total of 3 years that he has been on the run from police. He is rearrested on burglary charges, but of course when they rearrest him, they realize, like, sir, you got open cases, okay? So he is charged and taken to court for all of the things: the robberies, the kidnapping, the assault of the woman, and just everything. They go to court, both women testify against him and maintain that nothing that transpired had been consented to. However, the work of the prosecution was allegedly very sloppy. And at the conclusion of the trial, Ivan walks away a free man, acquitted of all charges. Unfortunately, this victory leads Ivan to believe that he can commit these kind of crimes, or crimes even on a larger scale, and potentially get away with them. After his win in court, Ivan takes a job as a truck driver and finds him a nice little young wife, 15 years younger, following in the footsteps of his father. But this marriage goes downhill very fast, okay? Ivan is extremely violent. He is obsessed with firearms. which really troubles his young wife. It would have troubled me too. And she decides very early on that this is a lot and I want out. And so she leaves him and returns home with her parents. And of course, Ivan is not excited about this. He's not happy about it. He does not want to just let her go away in peace. He instead goes to her parents' home. And when she refuses to leave with him, he burns down their house. Now, this unfortunately is just the beginning of the foolishness, okay? The wrath of Ivan. Shortly after this, a number of backpackers began to go missing from the I believe it's pronounced Belanglo forest. If not, then, we're just gonna chalk it up to my accent, shall we? A number of people who visit this forest to go backpacking are just vanishing out of thin air. But it is not long before gruesome discoveries begin to reveal the truth behind these sudden disappearances. On December 19th of 1922, two joggers stumble across a body laying face down in the dirt and partially concealed by leaves and branches and rubbish. This person's hands are tied behind their back, so it is very obvious that whatever had transpired was not an accident. They, of course, report this to authorities, and literally the very next morning, a second discovery is made by police a little under 100 feet from where the first person was found. Dental records confirm that the two are British backpackers, 21-year-old Carolyn Clark and 22-year-old Joanne Walters. The two women were last seen in April, just 5 months before, when they set out on a trip to go fruit picking and had not been seen or heard from by anyone ever since. Now, the medical examination reveals that the two of them had been brutally attacked. Carolyn had been blindfolded and then led into the bushes just a little bit away from Joanne. She had been put down onto her knees and slain execution style, but not just a single shot, a total of 10 shots to the head. Investigators believe that whomever had done this had propped her up and used her as target practice after the initial shot. And Joanne, she had been stabbed 14 times. Now, at this point, police are convinced that these are not the only two. Like, there has to be more victims out here in the forest somewhere. They conduct a search of the area, but there are no other discoveries to be made, at least not for now. Now, the following year, in October of 1993, a man is out scouring the forest for firewood when he stumbles upon human remains, and he, of course, informs police right away. When they come out and take a look, 2 additional bodies are discovered. Now, these two oddly are identified as a young teen couple that had gone missing, Deborah Everest and James Gibson, both 19 years old. Now, James had been found laying in the fetal position still, with stab wounds so deep that they had severed his spine and punctured his lungs. Deborah had been beaten so badly that her jaw, as well as other parts of her skull, had been fractured, and she had also been stabbed, but just once in the back. Now, this really perplexed the police because their belongings had been found back in 1989, which was the same year that they had gone missing. And the backpacks were found 75 miles north of where they had been discovered, now 4 years later. And just 1 month after this discovery, a human skeleton is found during a police sweep of this forest. The remains are able to be identified as the missing 21-year-old German backpacker, Simone Schmidl. And I really hope I'm pronouncing this lady's name right, but Lord knows I'm probably not. Charge it to my head in the Memphis City schools and not my heart, please. Simone had also suffered extremely deep lacerations as well as a severed spine. And nearby, 2 more bodies are discovered. And I just refuse to butcher these 2 names as badly as I'm just sure that I will. The 2 of them have been missing for 2 years now. Now, I believe this is pronounced Anya. I hope it is. Anya's head had been removed, and investigators sadly are never able to locate it. The other victim it was assumed that he had also been used as target practice, just as Carolyn had, and he suffered 6 shots. The frequency of these discoveries and the gruesomeness in nature are very shocking to Australia. They had seen nothing like this before. It completely dominates the media, and people are terrified that there's this crazed maniac on the loose responsible for all of these things. The only thing that provides them some level of comfort is knowing that all of the victims have been tourists hitchhiking and backpacking their way through this forest or in the area of this forest. So this makes them feel that they have some level of control, like they can avoid being targeted potentially, like maybe. But the fact that this person is still at large and no one knows who he is, and him also showing no signs of slowing down, leaves them with very little peace. As chatter begins to spread throughout the neighborhoods of who could be responsible for this, a lot of whispers began to circulate, suggesting that the Milat brothers are responsible. They, of course, have this reputation of very violent behavior. And not only that, they live right under an hour away from this forest. Authorities do listen to these whispers and these rumors, but unfortunately, they have literally no evidence sufficient enough to warrant a search of their family home. And speaking of said family home, this family home is where Ivan is still living with his mother and his sister Shirley, whom he's had a sexual relationship with since they were teens. Consensual relationship. They of course have a tip line for people to call if they have any type of information, right? The tip line is flooded. People are calling that thing left and right, girl. Phone ringing off the hook with people who feel like they have a little piece of knowledge or a little piece of information that will help them get down to the bottom of this. But most of the calls are just baseless claims that lead to nowhere. However, eventually, in comes a tip from an ex-Navy member by the name of Paul Onions. Now, Paul had backpacked himself around Australia years prior to this, and he had a very interesting encounter. Now, he tells authorities that while he was backpacking, a man had picked him up and tried to kill him, and he believes that this man is the one responsible for all of the backpack murders that they are working tirelessly to solve to no avail. He says while he was backpacking, checking out the scene and just enjoying nature, a man stops to offer him a ride and introduces himself as Bill. He accepts the ride, but he felt very eerie, very uneasy, literally as soon as Bill had pulled off the side of the road. Paul felt as if he should not have gotten into this man's car almost immediately. Bill had not said anything, he had not done anything strange. It was just something about him that just felt very off, and it had Paul's little spidey senses tingling. Now, initially, Paul thinks that maybe he's being a little paranoid, like maybe he is tripping, but his suspicions are confirmed when Bill pulls the car over in a secluded, very remote area just a couple of miles ahead of where he had picked Paul up, but nowhere near where he was supposed to drop Paul off. Honey, Paul is looking like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what you doing, baby? And he is watching as this Bill character pulls out a handgun as well as some rope. Now, Paul does not stick around, okay? He quickly gets out of that seatbelt, unlocks his door, hops out, begins to run. Bill chases behind him, firing shots at him, which Paul barely is able to dodge. Luckily, he is able to make it back to the highway, the main road, where he is then able to flag down a car, and this nice woman stops to give him a ride to the nearest police station. And not only does she give Paul a ride, she sticks around with him for just a bit. She gives a statement as well on his police report, just backing up the fact that she saw him running from the wooded area, obviously in distress, and back to the main road. But unfortunately, their statements are taken and then dismissed and seemingly forgotten because no one ever investigates the claims, no one ever looks into it anymore. It is just seemingly forgotten about over time. Whomever had taken the statement did not even think about this, didn't have a light bulb moment when these discoveries are made. It is actually not even until they talked to him on the phone that they realized the report that he made had been placed in a drawer where it had remained for years, just sitting and collecting dust while police scratched their heads, trying to figure out who was out here killing people in the forest. And of course, by this time, Paul had returned back to the UK where he was originally from. Had he not been back in Australia and caught word of what was going on, the connection seemingly would have never been made. They decide to fly Paul out to Australia to speak with him in person and to also give him a couple of pictures of potential suspects that they think could have had something to do with it. They, of course, want to speak to him to get a physical description, just anything that they can do to try to identify their guy. And once they present him a spread of 13 potential suspects, he quickly identifies number 4 as the guy that had attacked him. This Bill character was, of course, Ivan. Now the wheels on the bus get to going round and round, and this reignites a memory of 2 other women coming into the police station right around the time that Paul had made his statement, claiming that they had been hitchhiking and had also encountered and barely managed to escape this crazed maniac in the same forest, child. Yay, police. Fine police work there. These 2 women, of course, had come in to make reports themselves, and they had attempted to describe the man physically. They reached out to these 2 women as well to have them come back down to the station. And one of the women is able to also identify this photo of Ivan as her assailant. Now, Ivan, of course, is still not hard to find. He is still laid up in his mother's house, hunching on his sister, okay? Engaging in sister sex. They go out to the home, they speak with Ivan, his mother, his sister wife, Shirley. And get this, one of their brothers makes the claim that if Ivan had done this, which, he was kind of convinced that his brother had, but he tells police that he believes that Shirley is also in on it. Like, if he did this, you best believe Shirley is helping him, okay? He really tried to drop a dime on Shirley. I thought that was really interesting. On the day that they arrest Ivan, heavily armed police officers surround the house. Like it was something off of a movie. He still did not take it serious. He stood out in the front yard mocking them and laughing as if something was funny. They are able to take him in without incident. He does not put up a fight, y'all. He just laughs. And after they have him in custody, they commence to search the family home. Inside of the home, they find the exact same firearms cartridges, as well as the same type of electrical tape that had been found at the crime scenes. They find Indonesian money, although Ivan himself had never been to Indonesia. However, 2 of the slain victims had been in Indonesia before they had reached Australia. It was like literally their previous stop. They also find backpacking items like sleeping bags, of course, backpacks and clothing items just randomly stashed around the house and even inside of some of the walls. And inside of some of these backpacks, of course, are the belongings of more of these people that have been discovered and that have previously gone missing. Ivan was keeping items from each of his victims as trophies. You know what I want to do? I feel like that blush color I use would be a cute color on the inside of this lip. And I know it's blush, but I do what I want to do because I'm grown. So I'm going to put some on my lip. It's going to hit me. Now, this actually is a sleeping bag that belonged to Simone. Now, Ivan feels like he's been in this space before, and he knows how to get himself out of it. He hires the same lawyer that got him off on his first case, and he just knew he was about to backpedal and pussy pop out of this one, okay? He just knew that he was about to beat this charge as well. But this lawyer advises him to put in a guilty plea and take a plea deal. And that was not in the plan for Ivan. He said, no, baby, we're not going to jail. We're not doing that. Fires this lawyer and decides to plead not guilty on all charges. Now, his trial only lasts for a few short weeks, and in the conclusion of it, he is, of course, found guilty and sentenced to 7 life sentences plus 6 years for the abduction of Paul Onions with no possibility of parole ever. Now, although it was speculated that his sister wife Shirley was in on his antics, as well as his brother Richard, he was also suspected to have had some level of involvement. No evidence is ever discovered to support either theory that sister wife Shirley or Richard had anything to do with any of the things. But this is actually the brother that they suspect had something to do with it, and one of the surviving women actually identified him and claims that at some point she had seen his face, but unfortunately that was not enough to bring him up on charges as well. Child, he don't even look trustworthy. I believe he did it. Look at him. Once he is in jail, police decide to just do one final sweep, just to make sure they didn't miss anything or anyone. They comb over all missing person reports dating back to the early 1970s. They also scour that forest for any potential evidence, but they don't find anything else that is able to be tied to Ivan. Meanwhile, little Ivan said, baby, I'm not about to take this sentence and just sit down. No, I'm innocent. And in 1997, he had decided that he had had enough of this prison food girl and his prison lifestyle. It just was not for him. He, along with another one of the inmates, they plan and attempt this escape, which they fail at miserably. The two of them are caught and captured before they can even make it outside of those prison walls. And when they are captured, his little partner, he decides, child, that he would rather go on to glory, to the other side, before he returns to that cell. So he checks out of life, period. And Ivan, he is afraid to die. He's like, no, ma'am, I'm just going to find another way. Okay, it's got to be a way. After his failed attempt, he is transferred to the maximum security super prison. Y'all got super prisons over in Australia. What's going on in there? It's over in New South Wales. This one in particular that he is at. Ivan, he continued to maintain and claim that he was innocent and wrongfully accused, despite all of the evidence suggesting that he is in fact guilty. Instead of dedicating the rest of his little life to prison, he decided he would dedicate the rest of his life to campaigning for his freedom. Child, somehow he got his little crummy fingers on a label printer, the little handheld ones, typed "Ivan is innocent," printed a bunch of them, and just went around the prison girl, just sticking them on everything, the walls and the hallways inside his cell, down to the diner and the bathrooms, girl, just everywhere. He was sticking these little labels saying Ivan is innocent. And then they caught up with him and took his little label machine, girl, and then he just had to go on to his plan B, which was then appealed to the Supreme Court and the DNA Review Board. He writes them a letter asking them, urging them to review the details of his case, retest the DNA. He then cuts off his little pinky with a plastic prison knife job to put it in the envelope to provide them with, because if they're going to retest the DNA, girl, they're going to need some of his DNA to go with it to do the test. He figured he could get ahead of the game, be one step ahead, put the pinky in the letter, include the DNA in the letter for them to test. Now, I don't know if sound like he was losing his mind to me, but that's just where he went with that. His very large family was very publicly torn by his actions and the outcome. Half of them felt like he was innocent and wrongfully accused. The other half said, no, he did that, okay? He did it, and he's guilty, and he's right where he belongs. Both sides were very vocal in the media about their stance, and one of his biggest supporters was his great nephew Matthew. Now, at the time that all of this goes down, Matthew is just a toddler. Don't know nothing at the time that Ivan goes off to prison. But of course, you know how the families gossip, girl, how they talk about things down to the Thanksgiving dinner table and behind people's back. So he hears the chatter and the whisper about his Uncle Ivan and all the horrific things he had done. Really, Blue? To land himself where he is, down to the prison. He idolizes his uncle so much that in 2014, he asked that his last name be changed from his father's last name to Milat. Milat, of course, is Ivan's last name. It's also his mother's maiden last name, so I guess she didn't think that was too peculiar, and the change is made. 5 years later, in 2012, great-nephew Matthew, along with his friend Cohen Klein, lured their 17-year-old classmate to the same forest that Ivan had used to capture and discard all of his victims. It's the classmate's 17th birthday. They lure him there with the promise of giving him alcohol and, drugs to kind of celebrate his birthday and have a good time. But instead, the twisted little assholes axe him to death. Matthew records the entire ordeal on his cell phone. And as if that isn't bad and dumb enough, he goes back to school and brags about it to one of their little friends, saying, quote, "You know me. You know my family name. You know the last name Milat. I did what they do." It is, of course, not difficult to get a conviction on these two with the videotape evidence and how much they ran their mouths. Matthew receives a 43-year prison sentence. For his part, his counterpart Cohen receives 32 years in prison. And unlike his great aunt, who was still singing his song of being innocent and maintaining that he had nothing to do with anything, that he was a wrongfully accused man, little Matthew sits in jail and writes poetry about his crime, one of which he titled Your Last Day. A sick child. When Ivan learned of his nephew's actions, he is of course asked what he thought about it. And he claimed to be shocked, dismayed, disappointed, just all of the things, girl, horrified by his nephew's actions. Baby, at this point, just take the whole bloodline out, girl. Just take them all down, okay? In 2019, Ivan Milat was diagnosed with terminal cancer, a battle that he loses very shortly after. I believe it was about 5 months later. He passed away in October of 2019. And this, of course, wraps today's video. As for the foundation, like the change, I feel like, I don't know if it's the lighting, and I'll see it later when I'm editing, but I don't see a huge difference on camera. However, in person, girl, I'm loving it. I wonder if it's gonna translate. I hope that it does. It just looks a lot, I don't know, it just looks really good in person. I definitely feel like I'm gonna switch up my routine a little bit. We still wigless out here in these streets. I'm still loving that for me. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the look. Let me know what your thoughts are on Ivan and this whole fiasco down below. I really feel like Shirley and Richard was in on it too. I don't know much about them, but you know, if the inside girls, the other siblings, claim that these two were in on it, if something was going down with Ivan, girl, they would know better than me, and I'm gonna go with what they know, okay? They know something. But anywho, as always, I appreciate you so much. Leave your thoughts down below, please. I can't wait to read them and respond. Make sure you like the video before you leave. Subscribe if you have not. Share this video with a friend. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. Are we posing for, girl, the makeup in person? Like, girl, the foundation I don't think my foundation has ever looked this good. It has not. It has not. I'm about to FaceTime somebody's son. Like, that's unreasonable. Oh, see, now that I've started filming, oh, they just got outrageous with it. Like, it sounds like a transformer is transforming right outside on my patio. Outrageous. This is really just such an interesting little... How do I spell everything? Interesting what, girl? Did I say we was saying Ivan or Yvonne? Ivan. That was it. Do we have a ghost? Hey girl, at this point, baby, I'll take a little piece of company, however I can get it. And trigger warning for anybody who does not like hearing the details of child endangerment. This is looking wild, but you know, I think old girl looked this wild at this point in the process. I ain't tripping. This is looking crazy. I'm so interested on how this is gonna come together, honey, because right now, it's still looking real wild and crazy. But I got to see it through, my boy. And he is able to fly under the... Alright, so she did another layer of concealer. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not doing another layer of concealer. Now this really perplexed. Where's the L? And speaking of the family home, damn, Blue. Running from the police. He was not running from the police. Running from the forest that his sister wife Shirley was in on his antics. Missing person reports. Ugh, poke myself in the eye. Child, what go on at the super prisons? Is that where the people who are super bad go? Like, I'm trying to understand.